In this video, we're going to discuss how to initiate card payments via the Prime Trust API. Card payments are actually handled via a JavaScript widget that is provided to you by Prime Trust. The widget requires a token which determines which flow is executed in your HTML page. To get a token, to add a new card. This is the first step in the process, is adding a card. So this API call is a post request to /v2 credit card resources. And the only required data point is a valid contact ID within your organization. This API call is going to return a resource token hash. This hash is what you're going to pass to the JavaScript widget. And when it executes on this token, it's going to execute the add new card workflow, which we'll see later in the video. After you add a card, you'll need to refresh the token to charge that card. So in this case, you're going to send a post request to /v2 credit card resources. The credit card resource ID that was just created when you added the new card, and /token. Again, the data point included here is going to be the contact ID, and this is going to return a refreshed token. It looks very much like the last response that we had. Now, this refresh of the token will refresh once. If you execute this again before you use the token in the JavaScript widget, you'll actually get the same token back. So the token only changes after it's been used. A third token that you can get is to create a contribution on the back end. So this is a post request to /v2 contributions/token. You're going to include the dollar amount, the account ID, and the contact ID, and the funds transfer method that was created when you added the new card. And again, this is going to return a slightly different looking response, but it also has a resource token hash. And when you pass this to the widget, you will see a very similar flow to the flow that you see when you refresh a token for a charge of the credit card or the debit card, but it will be doing a different action in the back end, which is creating a contribution. The reason you would use a contribution is if you want to have controls in your back end for the amount. Then you have that flexibility when you create the contribution on the back end. When you're creating a charge via the widget, using the refresh token, the widget itself is accepting whatever value your customer puts in. This is a demo application that I've built using the Prime Trust JavaScript widgets for card payments. We're first going to show this page here, which I have created. This page has loaded the JavaScript widget in the background. Step one of making a card payment is to add a card. And what this is doing is going to be creating a funds transfer method in the background tied to this card. So we're going to create a funds transfer method using this MasterCard demo account number. So this yellow section is the form that is loaded by the Prime Trust JavaScript widget. The default color is white. I've only colored it yellow for demo purposes, so you can see what it entails. So this requires filling out all of this information and then clicking the Add Card button to create the funds transfer method. After filling in the form data, you're going to click the Add Card button. And you'll see here that we created this funds transfer method ID, and it's created for this specific contact. This is a contact that we created earlier in the demo in our demo environment. And again, this message is being displayed by the JavaScript widget. When we refresh this page, now we see the funds transfer method that I just created. So step 2 of making a card payment is to charge the card with this selected FTM that we just created. In this case, the form is only going to display a CVV form. In the sandbox, this does not need to match what you entered previously or anything in particular. In production, it must match the actual CVV on the back of the credit card or the debit card. After you submit the CVV, you're going to see the 3DS workflow, specifically 3DS2. In this case, we'll select a number, click Verify Now, and it's going to ask for a 6-digit number. The number is 123456 in the sandbox. Now we show that funds transfer method has been charged to create a contribution. When we view the account in the sandbox UI, you can see we now have a pending contribution. It shows up on the page for US dollars in the external transfers tab. And this is the amount that we submitted via the web form. Just like other funds transfer methods, we're going to need to go back to the sandbox only methods. In this case, we don't have the funds transfer, so we need to look for pending funds transfers via the API, specific to the account ID that we're using, with a filter status equal to pending. And again, here you can see the same amount that we saw in the UI. Now we have captured the ID, which we can use to settle that funds transfer using the familiar /v2 funds transfer ID /sandbox settle API path with a post request. And here you see status is settled. And if we go back to the web UI and we refresh the screen, we see the very familiar pending review 134402. Our transaction has been settled via the Sandbox API. And just a few seconds later, the asynchronous processes in the background will have run, and this will now become available when we refresh the screen. Going back to the demo app, we have a separate page that is set up to execute a contribution. So instead of charging the card directly via the widget, this workflow is going to create a contribution on the back end that is processed via the widget. As you can see, it looks exactly the same. It also shows the 3DS2 verification. And now this has been completed and a contribution has been created. And again, we're going to go back to Postman to find the pending funds transfer for that account. You can see this one is 1345. This is the contribution that we created. We go to the Sandbox funds transfer settle method. We can settle this funds transfer. Now when I refresh the screen, we see settled via the sandbox, the 1345, unavailable, 1345. And then we refresh the screen once more. And now we see that this is completed transaction in the sandbox.